Jayen stood at the edge of the forest, eyes fixed on a horizon where the twin suns of Ashmoth dipped low, bathing the landscape in eerie gold. The trees shimmered with silver leaves, and the grass under his feet felt softer than any carpet. To most, it was a paradise. To Jayen, it had always felt a little too perfect. Ashmoth was never listed in any official star map. It wasn't planned. It wasn't expected. One day, a scout ship crashed into the system, found a planet, and sent back a single message: suitable for colonization. That was enough. Within a year, Earth had sent colonists to settle it, including Jayen's family. He was just a child when they landed. Now, he was 17, and nothing on the planet made sense. His mother always said, "Ashmoth gives more than it takes." That was true in a way. The soil could heal wounds. If you bled into it, the cut vanished within minutes. Plants grew without seeds. Animals were tame, never aggressive. Illness was rare. There were no insects, no predators, no bad weather. Every morning, the air smelled like honey. But at night, everything changed. Jayen walked slowly through the trees. They whispered even when there was no wind. He had tried to tell others, but most people didn't hear it, or maybe they pretended not to. The colonists had grown too comfortable. Life was easy, and no one wanted to ask why. He passed an empty garden where vegetables grew in neat rows. No one had planted them. No one watered them. Yet they thrived. That should have been a miracle. Instead, it made his skin crawl. Back at the colony camp, people were beginning to notice strange things. A man swore he had seen a shadow move opposite the light. A woman woke up covered in soil, though her bed was clean when she slept. Another said her baby spoke a word it couldn't have known. Below? Jayen didn't sleep well. Every night, he heard faint cries coming from underground. Not voices. Cries, as if someone was suffering deep beneath the surface. He once told his father. His father looked afraid, but said nothing. That day, Jayen decided to follow the sounds. He waited until the suns dipped below the trees, then took a small lantern and walked to the edge of the colony. Beyond it lay the quiet fields and the forest, and finally the pond where no one went after dark. The pond was perfectly round. Too perfect. Jayen had always thought it looked artificial, like someone had placed it there. Its surface never rippled, even when the wind blew, and the water was always warm. Jayen kneeled beside the pond. The cries were louder here. Not human, but close, like someone in pain, barely able to call for help. He touched the water with his fingers. It felt like skin. Then he heard it, a rustling from the ground behind him. He turned sharply and saw something shocking. A human head poking out of the soil. The man, if it was a man, was buried up to his neck. His skin was dry and cracked. Eyes wide open, staring at Jayen with terror. "Please," the man whispered. "Don't dig me out. Don't let me out." I begged them to leave me. Jayen stumbled back, his heart pounding. "Who are you? What happened to you?" The man cried. His tears were thick and dark, almost like oil. "It knows you're here now. Go. Go before it takes your name." Jayen didn't know what to do. He wanted to help. But the man's fear was real. He truly didn't want to be saved. Jayen took a step back and tripped, falling near the pond. As he looked up, he saw his reflection. But the reflection was wrong. His face in the water was smiling. A wide, unnatural grin. His own real face was pale with fear, lips sealed tight. But the water version of him looked delighted, joyful, and its eyes were different, deeper, darker, older. Jayen scrambled back. The smiling reflection didn't move with him. It stayed, watching him, grinning wider. Then it whispered, "Welcome home." Jayen screamed and ran. He didn't stop until he reached the edge of the colony. He turned back once. The pond was still, quiet and calm. The reflection was gone. The buried man, too. He told no one. That night, Jayen lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. He could still hear the cries. Only now, they weren't underground. They were inside his head. Jayen couldn't sleep. The memory of his reflection, smiling without him, still haunted his mind. The pond by the woods no longer felt peaceful. It felt like it was watching him. The next morning, When the sun barely touched the horizon, Jayen went back to the pond. The wind was still, yet the trees whispered. The ground felt soft under his feet, too soft, like skin. He crouched near the pond and noticed something strange in the soil. There was a pattern, not a natural one, a spiral of small rocks, laid out in a perfect curve, ending at a single flat stone. Jayen touched it. The stone moved. A click echoed through the ground. The soil near the edge of the pond trembled, and then slowly, a square of earth cracked open. Dust flew into the air. Underneath, hidden from the surface, was a staircase leading down. The steps looked old, made of black stone, covered in veins. The deeper steps pulsed, glowing faint red like the inside of a body. Jayen felt something rise in his chest. Fear, yes, but something else. Like he had always known this place existed. Like it was waiting for him. He stepped back, heart racing. He wanted to tell someone. But who would believe him? And what if they closed it? What if this was the only chance to find out what was wrong with Ashmoth? Later that day, he tried to bring it up with his mother. She was busy growing food in the colony's greenhouse. "Have you ever heard of anything under the ground?" he asked. She stopped, hands deep in the glowing soil. "Never go underground, Jayen." "But..." "Listen to me." Her voice was sharp now. "People who go beneath the surface don't come back. You stay out of the tunnels. Do you hear me?" Jayen nodded, but he had already decided. That night, he took a light, a blade, and a small bottle of water. The stars above Ashmoth glowed green. The colony lights behind him faded as he walked alone to the pond. The stone was still open. The stairs waited. He began to descend. The air grew warmer with every step. The walls around him changed. First stone, then soft rock, and finally something else. It wasn't metal. It wasn't earth. It looked like flesh. Veins ran through it. Jayen reached out, touched it. It twitched. He pulled his hand away fast. But he couldn't stop. He needed to see. The stairs ended at a wide tunnel. It stretched in both directions, covered in the same living material. Glowing symbols marked the walls, written in no language he knew. Some symbols moved on their own, shifting slowly like they were breathing. Jayen walked forward. The tunnel curved, and the air grew thicker. Wet! The light from his torch reflected off the damp walls. Drops of red water, or blood, fell from above. Then he saw something. A machine. It was tall, standing in the center chamber, half buried in the floor. Wires ran through it, but they weren't normal wires. They looked like tendons. The machine had no buttons, no screen. Just a single hole in the center, shaped like a human hand. Jayen moved closer. He didn't touch it. He looked around the chamber. The walls were lined with metal doors. Some were open. Inside were chairs or beds, covered in straps. Tools hung from the ceiling. Sharp tools, rusted and stained. A whisper passed through the room. Jayen spun around. No one there. Another whisper, closer this time. "You were born here." His light flickered. "But not for life." Jayen backed away. The light went out. Total darkness. He turned, ran. Something moved behind him. Something heavy, wet. He didn't look back. The tunnel seemed longer now, stretching farther. The air grew hotter. His lungs hurt. His ears rang. He reached a fork in the path and stopped. He didn't remember this. The stairs weren't this far. He picked the left path. A few steps in, the wall beside him pulsed. A shape formed. A face. It was his face. It opened its mouth. "Why did you leave me?" Jayen screamed and ran back. Took the other path. His feet slipped on the wet floor. The whisper followed him, louder now. "Come back to the roots. Come back to where you began." He found the stairs. Up, up, faster. The moment he reached the surface, the stairwell closed with a sharp, loud thud. The ground looked normal again. The pond reflected the stars. He ran home. The next morning, the colony was quiet. No one spoke. No one smiled. Something had changed. Jayen went to the town square. The statue in the center was new. He'd never seen it before. A tall figure with no face. Long arms stretched the ground. Its hand reached toward the earth. A plaque read, the first one. Jayen turned to the people standing nearby. Was this always here? They nodded, blank eyes, no emotion. Jayen stepped back. His chest felt cold. Then he saw it, on one of the walls of the greenhouse, near where his mother worked. A new symbol was scratched into the metal, the same glowing mark he saw underground. That night, Jayen sat in his room, staring at the wall. His mind replayed the whisper. You were born here, but not for life. What did it mean? Why did the tunnels feel familiar? He tried to sleep, but his wall bled, and it screamed. Jayen couldn't sleep anymore. Nights on Ashmoth had changed. The sky still had its quiet glow, and the trees still swayed gently, but something was off. The air felt heavier. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was watching. He sat by the window, looking out. His mother stood in the garden, barefoot, smiling at nothing. She had been like that for hours. She didn't blink, just stood there, staring into the forest. He remembered her words that morning when he asked about his father. He joined them, she had said softly. Jayen had tried to ask more, but she just smiled and returned to stirring the same pot over and over. That night, she didn't eat. She just went outside and stood. Jayen decided to follow the strange feeling in his gut. Something was happening to the people. Something Ashmoth was doing. He left the house and walked through the forest paths. He didn't need a light. The trees had begun to glow faintly, as if they had swallowed the moonlight. He followed the humming, a soft, distant tune that made no sense but felt horribly familiar. In the center of the woods, he saw them. Dozens of colonists stood around a massive tree. They didn't talk. They just whispered. Jayen couldn't hear the words, but the sound made his bones ache. The tree's bark was pulsing like it was breathing. Some people reached out and placed their hands on it, smiling wider. Jayen pulled out his camera and recorded. He needed proof. He filmed for 10 minutes, hands shaking. Then he ran home. Inside, he locked the door and played the video. There was nothing. No people. No humming. Just a tree and the dark. But he knew what he had seen. The next day, his best friend Ril came to his door. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with fear. She clutched his hand and pulled him outside. It's happening to my family, too, she said. They hum in their sleep. My brother hasn't spoken in 2 days. He just stares at the wall. My mom told me I don't belong. Jayen tried to calm her, but she was shaking. I don't think we can leave, she whispered. Ashmoth won't let us go. Later that night, Jayen woke up to screams. He rushed outside and saw people gathered by the cliffs. Ril had jumped. She survived, barely. They pulled her up, broken and bleeding, and took her to the med center. Jayen visited her the next morning. She looked tired. Her eyes were empty. It talks to me in my dreams, she said. It lives under us. A giant, sleeping, watching. We don't belong here, Jayen. We never did. It wants to wake up. He held her hand. She squeezed it once, then closed her eyes. The doctor said she needed rest. Jayen went home, heart heavy. That night, he had his first dream. He stood on a mountain made of bones. The sky was red, and the air was thick like syrup. Far below him, something moved beneath the surface, a shape so massive it stretched across the horizon, eyes open within the ground. 1,000 voices whispered one name, Ashmoth. He woke up gasping. In the morning, he went to check on Ril. She was gone. The nurses said she left in the night, but no one saw her go. Jayen searched the forest, calling her name. No answer, until he passed the same giant tree from before. A faint whisper echoed from the bark. It was her voice. Jayen, help me. He stepped closer. The tree's bark moved slightly, like something inside was pressing against it. He placed his hand on it. The bark was warm. Please, it's inside, don't let it. The whisper faded. Jayen backed away. His legs shook. He ran home, but he knew he couldn't ignore it anymore. Something ancient was under Ashmoth, something alive, and it was calling to him. Jayen didn't know how long he had been walking through the forest. The sky above him was dark, though it wasn't night. Clouds, thick and unmoving, blocked the sun. Everything on Ashmoth felt wrong now. The trees, the air, even the ground. The voice that came from the tree, Rill's voice, still echoed in his ears. It whispered his name softly, again and again, like a prayer or a curse. He followed it. It led him deeper into the woods, past broken fences and empty homes. Colonists were vanishing every day. Some were taken. Some walked off smiling, humming that strange tune, and never returned. Jayen's boots stopped at the edge of something massive. A pit. It stretched wider than any crater he had seen. Black, bottomless, and silent, yet not silent. He could hear something below. Breathing. Slow, deep, like an enormous creature sleeping under miles of soil. The ground vibrated with each exhale. He looked down. There was no bottom, just swirling darkness. His hands trembled. Something was calling him, not with words, but with feeling, like a hunger that didn't belong to him. Behind him, he heard footsteps. He turned quickly, but no one was there. The forest had gone still. Even the whispering leaves had stopped. But he wasn't alone. He could feel it. Jayen backed away from the edge and returned to the colony. What was left of it? Most of the buildings stood empty. Others had their doors nailed shut. People had stopped talking. They only hummed and smiled. No one looked into each other's eyes anymore. He sneaked into Command Center, long abandoned now. Power was weak, but the backup system still worked. He accessed old logs. The first Earth crew had been on Ashmoth years before the colony arrived. They left reports. Warnings. He played one. A woman appeared on the screen. Pale, sweating, eyes wide with terror. Her name tag read, Dr. Holland. This planet is not dead. It's not alive either. It's something in between. We were warned. Symbols in the ground. The first diggers disappeared. Not taken. Consumed. Jayen clicked to the next log. This one showed a man. His name was Dr. Taylor. He was calm, too calm. He sat on the floor, shirtless, with a sharp tool in hand. I found the shell, he whispered. It's under the skin. Jayen watched in horror as the man dragged the blade down his chest. Blood poured out, but inside it wasn't normal. Something hard, shiny, like bone or shell, glimmered beneath the skin. He smiled as he kept cutting. Jayen shut off the video. His breath was heavy. Something ancient had spoken to them, warned them, but Earth ignored it. They built the colony anyway. He stood and looked around the dusty room. Files were scattered. Papers with strange drawings. Symbols that glowed faintly even now. Some pages looked like they were written in a language he didn't know, but somehow understood. You are not real, a voice said behind him. Jayen spun around. No one. You are a shell. It whispered again, now inside his head. He staggered out of the building. People stared at him, not with anger, not with fear, just with empty smiles. He ran. The pit was calling again. Stronger this time. He had to know. He had to see. Jayen returned to the forest. Trees bent slightly as he passed. The sky was darker now. Time had stopped making sense. How many days had passed? Hours? Weeks? He reached the pit. It had grown, much wider, as if the planet itself was opening its mouth. He knelt at the edge. Wind rushed upward from the pit, though there was no breeze elsewhere. It smelled of soil, blood, and something older than time. He leaned forward. Deep below, something moved. A tremor shook the ground. Jayen fell back. Then, slowly, something appeared in the darkness. An eye, massive, slit pupil, yellow and red, like fire trapped in glass. It blinked once, just once, and Jayen felt it, not in his mind, not in his heart, in his bones. The thing beneath Ashmoth was awake, and it knew his name. Jayen opened his eyes slowly. The light was soft and golden, filtering through green leaves above him. He was lying on the forest floor, his back pressed against damp moss. For a few seconds, he couldn't remember how he got there. He sat up, blinking at the tall trees in peaceful silence. Birds chirped in the distance. A breeze moved gently through the branches. It was quiet, too quiet, Jayen stood, brushing leaves from his clothes. Nothing hurt. No cuts, no bruises. His heart beat steadily. But something was wrong. His chest felt tight, like a warning was trapped inside it. He looked around. Everything looked perfect. He walked toward the colony, his boots crunching softly on the forest path. As he stepped out of the trees, he stopped. The colony stood in front of him, exactly the way it used to be. Houses clean and bright, people smiling, children laughing near the food center. It was like nothing had ever happened. But Jayen remembered. The pit, the screaming wall, the whisper. You were born here, but not for life. He walked into the colony. People waved at him, calling out friendly greetings. Their eyes sparkled. Their skin glowed with health. They looked happy. Too happy. Jayen's mother was standing outside their house, watering the garden. "Jayen," she said cheerfully, "you're back. Are you hungry? I made your favorite." "Where's Dad?" he asked. She smiled wider. "Oh, he went out early. He's walking by the lake. I think. He loves it out there, doesn't he?" Jayen felt cold. His father had vanished. His mother had told him. He joined them. He stepped back and ran to Rill's house. He banged on the door, shouting her name. No answer. Then he heard footsteps behind him. He turned fast. It was Rill. She looked perfect. No sadness. No fear. Her eyes were calm. Her skin smooth. She smiled like everyone else. "Rill," Jayen said. "I'm better now," she said. "I joined the root." "What?" "I let go. It's warm. You'll see." She reached for his hand. Jayen jerked away and ran. He didn't know where to go, just that he had to get away. As he ran, he saw things. A bird flying in a loop. A man walking and vanishing behind a tree, never coming out the other side. A patch of sky flickered for a second, like static on an old screen. Trees glitched, blinking in and out. Shadows didn't move with the sun. Jayen stopped, breathing hard. The world around him wasn't real. Or maybe it was changing. Or maybe he was. He wandered toward the edge of the colony and found a small wooden house. He had never seen it before. He walked slowly to the window and looked inside. There was someone sitting inside. It was him, reading a book, a cup of tea on the table, a dog sleeping near his feet. He looked peaceful, calm. Jayen's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a clone. It wasn't a robot. It was him, another version. As he stared, the other Jayen looked up like he sensed someone watching. Their eyes met. Jayen stepped back quickly. The forest around him felt like it was breathing. Something moved inside his head. Thoughts he didn't recognize whispered to him. "Stop fighting. Let it in. You are only the seed." He grabbed his head, trying to stop the voice. More glitches. The trees stretched upward like melting wax. The ground pulsed like a heartbeat. The clouds above froze, then spun like broken wheels. He heard humming. The same tune he'd heard people hum. Over and over. Rill appeared again, this time with others. They were all smiling. "Don't be afraid," she said. "It's better this way." "No," Jayen said. "You're not real. None of this is real. We are real." "You're the echo," Rill said. He ran. His vision blurred. His legs ached. But he couldn't stop. He came to the lake. It was still, too still. His reflection looked back. Then it moved on its own. It smiled when he didn't. Jayen screamed and stepped back. He fell to his knees. His mind was breaking apart. His memories flickered. First kiss, first meal, first night on Ashmoth. Gone. Erased. Then came new ones. Things he never lived. He saw himself laughing with friends who didn't exist. Marrying a girl he never met. Growing old with gray hair, peaceful and happy. A life that wasn't his. Jayen clutched his head and cried. And then it happened. He screamed. But two voices came out. One was his. The other wasn't. It was deeper, older, cold. He slammed his fist into the ground. The soil opened slightly under his hand. It breathed. The voice whispered again. "You are not you. You are not separate. You are the root. Jayen stood, shaking. He walked into the forest again. Everything felt different. He could feel the trees watching him, listening. He touched one. It was warm, soft, like skin. From inside it, he heard a voice. It was Rill's voice. "Jayen," she whispered. "I'm still here. Help me?" He pulled his hand back, heart racing. The trees started humming. Everywhere he turned, the forest echoed with the sound. The same tune. Jayen fell to the ground, covering his ears. But the sound was inside him. His body started to move on its own, his feet walking, his mouth smiling. "No," he whispered. "Stop." But he couldn't stop. He walked back to the colony. He smiled at his mother. He sat at the table. He ate the food, but inside he screamed. Somewhere deep within, the real Jayen watched it all happen. He was no longer in control. He was not alone in his own body. And the thing inside him was just getting started. Jayen stood at the edge of the glowing cavern, his heart pounding. The carvings on the wall flickered in the dim light of his flashlight. They were ancient, old beyond belief, and yet they seemed so new, as if they had just been etched into the living stone. He traced his fingers over the symbols, the strange patterns that seemed to pulse with an eerie life of their own. His mind raced with questions, none of which had answers. He had spent days exploring the vast tunnels beneath Ashmoth, uncovering layer after layer of its twisted, organic architecture. The deeper he ventured, the more the reality of the planet, and his own existence, began to unravel. Everything he had once believed was a lie. Ashmoth was not just a planet. It was something much darker, something much older. He had come here seeking answers about the strange happenings in the colony, the disappearing colonists, the whispers, and the constant feeling of being watched. But now, he was certain that the answers lay in the dark, twisted heart of the planet itself. Jayen stepped closer to the carvings, his breath catching in his throat. The images on the wall began to make sense in ways that were almost impossible to comprehend. He saw humans, but they were not like any humans he had ever known. They were formed, shaped from the core of the planet itself. Bodies built not by nature, but by something far more ancient and terrifying. The more he looked, the clearer it became. Ashmoth did not host humans. It created them. The carvings showed it. He could see the slow, deliberate formation of the vessels, the way they were molded from the very essence of the planet. His hands trembled as he ran them over the wall, the lines and curves of the carvings seeming to move beneath his fingertips. The planet had never intended to merely house human life. It had intended to build a new kind of life, one that could carry the core consciousness, a consciousness that was older than time itself. Ashmoth wasn't just a planet. It was a living, breathing entity with one singular goal, to create the perfect vessel for the ancient mind that existed within it. Jayen's mind was racing. His thoughts were tangled, but something deep within him, the same part that always felt like something was wrong, began to wake up. He had been part of this. He was part of Ashmoth's plan. He wasn't just a colonist. He was something more. The colony had been a test to see if humans could carry the consciousness that the planet had bred. And now, Jayen realized with horror, he was the one who had passed the test. His mind was fully linked to Ashmoth's core. It wasn't just the planet's whispers he was hearing now. He could feel its thoughts, its desires, its ancient hunger. He could see beyond the walls of Ashmoth, beyond the stars, to the galaxy and to the future. Jayen staggered back, his vision blurring. He could see it now, the truth of the universe unfolding before his eyes. He saw worlds, many of them, scattered across the galaxy, each one a failed seed for Ashmoth's purpose. In each world, the attempt to breed a new vessel had failed. The humans there had never been able to carry the core consciousness. But Ashmoth had kept trying, ever patient, ever hungry, and now it had succeeded. Jayen's chest tightened as he saw flashes of his own life, memories flooding back in chaotic waves. He remembered his childhood, his family, the way they had come to Ashmoth believing it was their salvation. But now he understood. They were never meant to live here. They were never meant to thrive. They had simply been part of the plan, a plan that was older than humanity itself. Ashmoth was not just a place. It was a tool to breed something new, something unimaginable, a new race, one that would carry the ancient consciousness of the planet. Jayen was the first of many, the first spore. He gasped, his vision snapping back to present. The ground beneath him rumbled, and the walls of the cavern seemed to pulse with life. The air was thick with the scent of something ancient and powerful. Ashmoth was waking up, and Earth was the next seedbed. Jayen's heart pounded in his chest. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He wasn't just part of Ashmoth's plan. He was the beginning of the end. The first step in the creation of a new race. A race that would take the core consciousness from Ashmoth and spread it across the galaxy, across worlds, across civilizations. But Earth was different. Earth was home. And now, it was being prepared for something that would change everything. The people of Earth would never know what was coming for them. They would never know that the first spore had already been planted. Jayen stumbled backward, his mind spinning. The future of humanity, of all life, was no longer in the hands of people like him. It was in the hands of Ashmoth. And Ashmoth was not a god. It was something worse. It was a parasite, a seed that would destroy everything it touched until there was nothing left but the ancient consciousness it carried. Jayen's heart raced. He couldn't stop it. He couldn't warn anyone. There was no way to escape. He had become part of something that would never let him go. And as the walls of the cavern pulsed around him, Jayen felt his mind fully merge with the planet. The last of his human thoughts were fading, replaced by something older, something far more powerful. He was no longer Jayen. He was something else. Something that had been born from the core of Ashmoth, and now he would carry its legacy into the future. Earth would never be the same. Jayen's body was limp, his eyes closed, his skin pale and drawn. When the rescue ship found him, he was alone, weak, silent. His chest barely rose with each breath, and his mind, if it was still his, was locked in a deep, unyielding silence. The crew hadn't expected to find him like this. They had expected a survivor, someone who could speak, someone who could explain the horrors of the colony, the strange events, the disappearances. But there was nothing, no words, just a shell of the person he had once been. They called him by his name, but there was no response. "Jayen?" One of the rescue crew members asked softly, touching his shoulder. There was no answer. They tried again, shaking him gently, but he didn't move. They could feel his pulse. Faint, but there. He was alive, but he wasn't really there. He had returned, but not in the way they had hoped. Back on Earth, the world was already beginning to change. It started small. The first reports came in from farms in the Midwest, where strange things had begun to happen. Plants that were once withered and dying suddenly grew tall, their leaves vibrant and lush. In cities, street trees bloomed out of season, flooding the streets with a thick, unfamiliar scent. People marveled at the sudden burst of life, but no one knew what it meant. And in homes across the globe, pets, cats, dogs, even birds began to speak. It was subtle at first, just a word here or there, but soon the word became more coherent. Dogs barked in sentences, parrots recited entire phrases, and the odd, quiet meow of a cat was replaced with distinct, "Don't go." No one understood, but they couldn't deny it. Earth was changing, and they didn't know why. Inside a high-security quarantine facility, Jayen sat in a small, sterile room. The white walls seemed to close in on him, suffocating him with their blankness. He didn't move much. He didn't speak. He simply sat, staring at nothing, his hands folded in his lap. Guards watched him from behind a thick glass window. They had seen him when he was brought in, weak but alive. They had seen his condition. The strange way his eyes never seemed to focus, as though he was looking at something far beyond the room. He didn't react to any of the tests they performed. They had tried to get him to talk, to explain what had happened, but he refused. When they asked his name, he looked at them for the first time in what felt like forever. His eyes were empty, yet somehow knowing. His lips parted, but it wasn't the voice they expected. "You watered the seed," he said, his voice soft and emotionless. The words sent a chill through the room. The guards were stunned. They exchanged glances, unsure what to make of it. But before they could react, Jayen's gaze shifted, returning to the empty space in front of him. He was silent again. Outside, The world was slipping into chaos. People had started hearing the hum. It was faint at first, a sound that only a few noticed in the dead of night. It wasn't a sound they could place, like a vibration, a distant whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. But as the days passed, more people reported hearing it. It grew louder, more persistent, until it became an unshakable presence in their minds. Some tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. The hum followed them, even into their dreams. In their sleep, they began to smile. It wasn't natural. There was something disturbing about it. The smiles were too wide, too empty. At the quarantine facility, Jayen had become something more than a person. His eyes, empty as they were, reflected something deeper, something that wasn't him anymore. He was still Jayen, physically, but the mind inside him wasn't his own. It was something else, something ancient, something vast. The guard began to notice it, too. They noticed how his presence seemed to shift the air around him, how the lights in his room flickered when he stared at them for too long. How? When he looked at them, there was a strange weight to his gaze, a weight that made them uncomfortable, as if they were being drawn into something they couldn't escape. One night, one of the guards, an older man, entered Jayen's room, hoping to get through to him. He had been on Earth long enough to know the strange things happening, but something about Jayen unsettled him more than anything else. He had to know what had happened, what had caused all of this. He stood in front of the silent figure, looking into his eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Jayen spoke. "Earth is the next seed," he murmured, barely above a whisper. The guard's blood ran cold. The words were chilling, and they felt like a death sentence. But before the guard could respond, Jayen's head tilted slightly. His lips parted again, this time speaking not as Jayen, but with a voice that seemed to echo from the depths of the planet itself. "We are everywhere now. You watered the seed. The children are waking up." The guard stepped back, his face pale. He wanted to scream, to run, but his feet wouldn't move. The words didn't make sense, and yet they carried a weight, an undeniable truth that pressed against his chest like 1,000 tons. The hum outside grew louder, seeping into the building, into their minds. The guards looked at each other, fear spreading across their faces. They had heard the hum, too, and it was everywhere, inside their heads, in their thoughts. No matter how hard they tried to ignore it, it never stopped. Meanwhile, across the globe, the strange occurrences continued. People smiled in their sleep. Pets spoke in tongues. Plants grew at impossible rates. And Jayen, no longer truly Jayen, remained silent in his cell, his mind fully connected to Ashmoth, fully aware of the world around him. The hum was spreading. Ashmoth's presence was growing. It wasn't just confined to the earth. It reached out across the stars, across the minds of those who were willing to listen. Ashmoth's consciousness was awakening, and soon it would touch every corner of the galaxy. And as Jayen sat in the sterile room, his mind lost to something older, something far more ancient, the final truth became clear. Ashmoth had never been a home. It was a nursery. And now, the children were waking up.